My daughter's transitioning to walking to and from school by herself. As we plan out how these trips are going to be, we will talk about not just the full trip, but we'll chunk it up and we'll use landmarks to guide those bits. For example, there's a prominent footbridge that we want her to cross over. So we might say something like, okay, walk from school to the bridge. Maybe when we're starting out, I'll meet you on the bridge and then we'll walk the rest of the way home. She advances more. It's like, okay, well, walk to the bridge, cross the bridge, and then I'll meet you on that side. Great. Or go to where the subway station is. There's a bodega there. Go to the bodega. I'll meet you there. We'll walk the rest of the way home. And she kind of progresses towards finally she's got the whole route down. As I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how this is often how things work in stories and tales and real kind of expeditions. You're trying to get to someplace out in the wilderness. You're generally not doing it in just one chunk. Get from here to just the lost planet of Z out in the jungle or wherever it happens to be. You're doing it in smaller chunks. You are maybe trying to get to the next landmark that's closer. Well, I know that there's a bend in the river and there's something there. So let's try to get to that bend in the river. Maybe there's a logging camp or there's a friendly village. Something's there, a tower, a local lord. Okay, so we don't have to try to get from wherever we are all the way to the lost city yet, or where we think the lost city is. We just need to get from us to that next location. And maybe that next location is in a more reasonable amount of time. Maybe we don't know how long. Maybe we think it's a week till we think we can get to the lost city, but maybe only a day or two to get to that village or that whatever that thing is. And once we get to that location, maybe we ask the locals. We say, hey, we're looking for the lost city. Have you heard anything about that? And it's a lost city, so maybe the people don't know directly, but someone may say, well, I don't know where that is, but I know my cousin, he saw this weird statue that was half buried in the muck. It seemed odd to us, he's very old. Maybe that will tell you something. Okay, great. Where's your cousin? Well, he lives in a smaller settlement that's up around the river somewhere. Maybe I can take you, or maybe someone else can take you. You can find it. Great. Now that's our next chunk. And we hope that that chunk will bring us closer to our final destination of the lost city of Z. We get to that next location, maybe a smaller village or an outpost, maybe just a single farmstead, whatever it is. Hey, we met your cousin. Oh yeah, I found that thing over here. I was, I was out in the woods or wherever. I was doing a little prospecting. I could take you up there. Okay, great. So now we have another chunk. Or maybe they can't take us, but they can give us a map fragment, or they can give us some clues, right? However it works out. And now we've moved yet another chunk closer to the lost city. And then maybe from here, we can find remains, half-buried roads, other things that can give us some idea of, aha, okay, the lost city is over that way. Maybe we've already have a map fragment. And finally, we see the statue and it matches something on our mysterious map fragment, which gives us another moment. Or we have to find another chunk and then another chunk. And then we're taking these more measured steps towards the lost city. In some ways, you might look and say, well, what we're really doing is creating a point crawl. Instead of just doing kind of a hexy thing, we're finding our own points from wherever we started to that settlement village, to the smaller cousin settlement village, to the statue, to whatever. However you want to dice it. With the structure, it gives the party something to work on. It gives you, if you're the game master of the situation, some things to play around, to kind of hang your hat on, to build up. On the player side, it gives you something to do other than just moving. Because I think what can happen in a hex crawls, you end up out in the wilderness and you're just kind of going. I'm going, and rolls are being made. Whatever system you're using, either you're getting lost in a passive fashion, or you're making navigation rolls. You're going, and you're kind of like, we're going to get there. Oh, we don't. And that's kind of it. You just kind of go around and around, and that's all you're doing. Maybe just the way it's designed, or the fact that it lacks any kind of structure, you don't think of things like, well, hey, could we get a local guide? Could we ask directions? Now, hey, look, it's a lost city. There's not going to be someone that's going to say it's right over there, or at least we don't think so. Though oftentimes when you get close enough, the locals do know it's there. Maybe they just know it by another name, or they just didn't think it was lost because it's right over there. It's only, as you get away from it, that it fades into obscurity. So it might be that once we get into the hex in which the lost city is, some of the locals, whoever's there, might go, well, I don't know about a lost city, but there's this really overgrown spot kind of over there that I can take you to. So that even may be a little bit overblown. But in any case, with this lack of structure, you might feel like there's nothing to do but just roll dice and move your pawn around or pick random direction and just keep saying like, oh, I go north, I think. When the reality is there's many things that you could do. There are things you could do in these towns. There's researching, talking to sages, trying to find local guides, trying to talk to the hunters and other outdoors people, the people who are already moving through this area. Maybe there are traders or prospectors, miners, all these folk who are going to be fanning out through the countryside just as part of their day to day. What have they seen? Have they seen anything weird? Have they noticed any weird rock formations or weird statues or road fragments or pottery shards or sherds, whatever they call it? Oh, whatever it is, we can do that. And of course, you could. This is where you can obviously start feeding in all kinds of other subplots and other things. Like, oh yeah, I did find some stuff, but I'm trying to prospect for whatever, and I just don't want to give that information away. So what can you do for me? Maybe I don't want money, or maybe I do, or maybe I want you to do something, or I need something, or oh yeah, I'd love to get back there, but I can't because this thing's washed out and there's a ravine, so I need your help. Whatever it is, you all of a sudden can be feeding in all this new subplots and just content in there if you want to. You also have all these personalities coming up. What if one person can help you, but then another person, they're enemies, so you got to figure out how you can try to get information from both of them, because you need both parts of the equation, but you don't want one to see you in the company of the other one, because then they might turn against you. In the 1999 Mummy movie, there's a really good example of this, where in which the scientists, or I guess the librarian and her brother, need to get the kind of the guy who's been to the lost city, in this case, the city of Hamunaptra, out of prison. So the brother of the librarian, I've forgotten all the names, so apologize for that, had stolen the map, but they needed more out of it. Or I think she wanted to get more of the sourcing of the map. They needed to get a hold of the actual guy. But now he's in jail, and he's going to be hanged. So what they needed to do was they end up having to bribe the jailer to let him out so they could then go on the adventure. Right. So that's a nice twist. Hey, the source of the information's out there, but he's in jail, or he's been captured by whatever, or he owes money to folks. They're not going to let him go. Many different permutations. I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is, as I try to, with my daughter, structure her trip so that she's not leaving the school and just seeing endless blocks of New York City before her and trying to figure out what to do, say, hey, you don't need to remember all the route all the way home in one go. Just remember, get from school to the bridge. Then you can get from the bridge to the next landmark. Then you can get from the next landmark to the next one. And if she didn't know those things, if had her on my phone and she's like, hey, I'm at the bridge and now I don't know how to get home, I say, okay, well, why don't you see, can you get to the next spot? Can you get to the next spot? And your party can make use of these things. Your players can't, but they have to know they exist. They have to know that if they take these avenues of questioning people and going on some fact-finding pieces and stop their movement to do this research, to do this questioning, and do that these people have answers. And I think it's easy as a GM to think like, gee, well, the city's lost. Nobody knows. But I'm not sure that's actually true for the most part. And we want to make sure that it's gameable. If nobody knows where the city is, that's fine. But they probably know enough to get close. And that's what happens with discoveries. You get close, you're bumping around, and sometimes you run into it. In a kind of game, we want to make sure that these things can be found and that we give our players at least the tools, the options to try to make it happen. And you can do that in a hex crawl. You can do that in your wilderness adventuring. It doesn't just have to be, well, here you go, open vista, you're welcome, adios. Put the tools out there and then let them know those tools are available. And then hopefully your players will get in the mindset to use them, much in the way that if my daughter were not sure where to go, that she could ask somebody, maybe not get all the way back to our house, but hey, she's at the bridge. She sees one of her friend's parents or somebody. She says, hey, sir, ma'am, person, do you know where the bodega is nearby the subway stop? And they could point her over there. And then maybe from there, she can get her bearings. So do what my daughter does. Give your players the tools that I'm trying to give my daughter by putting out the kind of information available to help your party navigate the wilderness. Give them some structure. Give them some points. This is where things like landmarks can also come in, because you can talk about, hey, you see that big hill over there, go there and turn left. Put the information out there. Make sure it is known that there is information to be had, because if they don't know, they may not try. That's just the way players are, and you have to remind them. And then hopefully if you find that their minds get boggled when they're presented the open vistas of the wilderness, you can give them the tools to narrow their views and the scope to something more manageable. That's all I've got, everybody. Happy holidays, game on, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.